Hi, good afternoon. My name is Bosko Popovic. I'm a holistic health coach and I specialize in working with people with mental health ailments and especially helping them to basically overcome those particular conditions in a totally natural way through the so-called energy healing. So this video today, I'm going to briefly go um, to talk about the how to actually treat anxiety and why the actual anxiety actually comes to be, and why do we all experience anxiety at some stages, or let's say most of the time in our lives. In the past, literally, anxiety did not exist per se because we were preoccupied mainly with the things that we could consciously control. That means that most of us were self-employed, worked in our farms and things like that. We're talking about 100 and 200 years ago, in where we did not really depend too much on the society, on other people, on help from others and things like that, because we were more or less self-centered, and we were also reliant upon the people with whom we actually were part of a either smaller community such as the families or group of families that used to work together for the benefit of each other. In that case, as you controlled everything with yourself, so it means that there were not really things that were outside of your control, and which by that set of developments you have actually started to build certain imaginary outcomes that actually engage the emotion of fear. Then you are in full control. What has happened through the so-called modernization, advancement of a civilization, and so on and so forth we've experienced in the last 100 or so years, with the simultaneous rise of so-called technology and the simultaneous rise of working more organized way using technology, we have actually started to become more and more dependent on circumstances than on our own making. So that means that we are now actually becoming more enslaved by the circumstances and the way they are dictating the outcomes to us, as opposed to us effectively controlling what outcomes do we want to create. In the program we designed, we're actually dealing with all these things in several steps. So this is a quite how can I say, a difficult methodology to explain in a few minutes. But what it effectively means is, what you can control is what you see and what you do. And you should only focus on what you see and what you can do. All the rest of it that you cannot physically influence with your actions and with your intentions that precedes your actions, then that means there's nothing you can do about it. But equally so, when you're actually facing something that you don't like, you need to accept and have a faith in yourself that everything really works in your favor, even though there are events in your life which you deem are unacceptable. And if you actually perceive those unacceptable events as they're working against you, as opposed to learning from them, because they're meant to be teaching you something you do not actually understand now, or maybe you don't even know. And the only way to start learning about it is by being brought to your attention. That's why those negative, so-called negatively perceived events or things are happening to you at a certain times of your life. If everything is kind of like jammed up and comes in a sequential order, that means that you are working to something really big, but you're actually speeding things up to achieve that big thing, which should be actually taking much longer time to do, in which case it's telling you you are pushing things too far and too quickly. So maybe the best thing to do is slow down a little bit. That's possibly one of the messages that you could be receiving, but you're not actually decoding, understanding them in that particular way. So if that happens and you're not aware of this and you have no faith in yourself, you're then engulfed and overwhelmed by fear. As the fear starts to grip you strongly in its arms, then you start to project that fear into using those outcomes or those situations to create outcomes, which might be something that you have no faith in yourself that you can actually bridge or you can actually resolve effectively in your favor. This is one of the major reasons why people are experiencing anxiety. So it is basically, first of all, you might be pushing yourself too far without giving yourself time and space to learn from the circumstances that are surrounding you here and now. The ones that you can handle, you have no problem with. The problem comes with the ones that you cannot, or you perceive yourself that you cannot handle because you have no relevant knowledge. The reasons why those signals are coming is for you to actually force you to gain the relevant knowledge that you need in order to start to push yourself to learn something you don't know now. By learning that particular skill or knowledge or whatever it might be, you will effectively then start to create a greater knowledge that will lead you into what you want to achieve. I know I'm talking about too much around and I'm not really hitting the spot, but I'm generalizing here. So I cannot give you any particular example that might be relevant because every single example is relevant. So this is about outlining the steps in which you need to really be mindful of in understanding what precedes the so-called irrational fear. And then if irrational fear is not being dealt with, then of course you will then experience anxiety, which is something that actually sits in you and subconsciously is always telling you that whatever you're doing, you're always going to have a negative outcome in the end of it. But if you really take a step back and analyze this with your cool head, without going into the details of what is it trying to tell you in a negative way, you will then be able to understand that those negatives really are not really negatives. They're only negative because you do not know at this moment how to deal with them. But if you take them as the road signs to point you to the actual directions you need to take in order to fill the gaps in the knowledge that is missing right now, and then once you do that, and once you become more knowledgeable about things that you don't know right now, and these particular so-called obstacles are actually warning you about, you will no longer see them as such. So from that point of view, you will then start to negate anxiety, and you will then start to negate that particular sort of root cause of your fears that are leading to anxiety. And this is how it grows. So as you walk through your life, you're always going to have something that's going to sit in front of you and will like ring the bells. But don't focus on ringing of the bells. What I would suggest you do is focus on what is it actually trying to point your attention to. That is the most important. If you focus on something else, such as ringing of the bells and the actual signs telling, negative signs giving you this and that and whatever it might be, then you will start to engage into fear and into irrational irrational behaviors, and of course the lead you to anxieties. But if you take a different step and focus on what is it actually pointing yourself to do, and do it, acknowledge that the negative sort of signs and signposts and everything, yes, very important, acknowledge them, but do not be afraid of them. Don't take them in a way that they are frightening you, that you are incompetent, that you are belittled, or whatever you might be thinking of yourself at a particular moment, that you're not able to cope with it. You can, but you just don't have relevant knowledge. So, as I said before, to repeat myself again all the time, look at what is the actual meaning that is sitting in that warning, and deal with the meaning. Understand the warning, accept it as a warning, but deal with the actual meaning. And also, depending on the strength of the warning itself, and that might be at the beginning, the actual effect of the warning might not be as strong, but normally if it's not strong enough, you might let it go and then overlook that. Next time it'll be stronger and then stronger and stronger. So if you keep overlooking that all the time, the danger is you will at some point face a situation that's going to be so grave, because the multiplications of the previous warnings that have been ignored will lead to the build-up of the energy that will be far greater for you to deal with than as if you have actually dealt with that particular energy at the steps way before, or ideally from the very first warning you received subconsciously, but you have decided to ignore. So those are important things that you need to be paying attention to in order to keep yourself fully locked in the moment. And this is what I'm teaching as well in my program, is you need to be at all times be in the present moment. Now that's not easy. It takes, depending on where you are now and your psychophysical states and so on and so forth. So all that contributes towards your ability to be in the moment. But nevertheless, even if you're unable to, in any case, even for 1 second or even less than a second, focus on the here and now, there's not a problem. You can do that, provided you follow a certain methodology that comes with it. So that's not an issue. But the thing is, you need to acknowledge what you need to learn and keep learning, because the more you learn, the more you'll be equipped to deal with the situations for which you have no relevant knowledge to tackle right now. As that is the case, the fear comes in as the actual savior to point out to you that right now you do not have the weapons or the right weapons to go and tackle that particular problem that you have in front of you. Not maybe not weapons, but the tools. So, acquisition of those tools will actually give you the power to overcome them, and then you will have another ones and another ones and another ones as you continue to build and learn and acquire the tools you need for your prosperous and your trouble-free, you'll never be trouble-free, but so-called minimization of the trouble in your life. You will effectively then start to master it. One way or the other, but you will. So with this particular presentation, I would like to draw the on the anxiety. In my next videos, I'm going to talk about the other topics, maybe about the energy, because the energy is the all there is and not everything that we actually engulfed in and who we are. So I'm going to do another series on the energy and on different aspects of what we need to do. But please bear in mind, all these things can be learned, and all these things can be overcome, provided that you have the awareness, or you choose to build an awareness so that you can effectively do something about that. See you in the next video.